In this video, I'm going to be turning this spice jar into a terrarium. I'm starting by peeling off the label. Luckily, the label came off without leaving too much residue on the glass. But as you can see, there is a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to remove it. I take some hand sanitizer and put a few drops on the glass. I then use my finger to spread it out on the affected areas. I then leave it to sit for a couple minutes to soak in. Using a blunt edge, such as this metal ruler, I gently scrape off the remainder of the label. As you can see, the hand sanitizer has made it really soft and easy to get off. Now the label is removed, it's time to clean out the inside. To do this, I took it over to the sink and rinsed it out a few times. Now it's time to start making the terrarium. I'm starting off by adding the substrate. I'll put my mix up on screen now in case you want to make it yourself. It holds humidity, is well draining and provides nutrients for the plants. Using a spoon, I pour a generous amount of substrate into the jar. For this build, I'm making a vertical terrarium. This means I need to compress and pack the substrate down to the back of the glass. To do this, I'm using the back of a paintbrush. You can use something like a pen or a wooden stick. Quick tip, ensure the substrate is relatively damp before putting it in the terrarium. This will help it stick better to the glass. Time to bring the terrarium to life by adding the moss. I'm using Fern moss, which is one of my favourite species to use in terrariums. It has a wild jungle look, which is hard to find in some mosses. I tear it into small clumps and then use some tweezers to get it inside. Having long terrarium tweezers is a must-have when making small terrariums like this. I'll put a link in the description to the ones I use. I use the tweezers to push the moss up against the substrate. This will help it quicker establish and prevent it from drying out. Here's all the moss in, and as you can see, it's really starting to take shape. Time for the hardscape, and for this terrarium I'm only going to be using some small twigs. I didn't get these anywhere special, I just found them in my back garden. Before putting them in, I positioned them outside to see if they're the right shape and height. This one wasn't, so I broke the branches down slightly. And then once again I used the tweezers to get it in place. They create a really simple but effective hardscape that is very easy to replicate. I follow the same process with the second twig, but this time I arrange it on the right side of the terrarium. With the hardscape done, it's time to move on to the plants, or the plant I should say, as I'm only using one. This is a cutting of Peperomia Emarginella. It's a miniature species of peperomia that has beautiful turtle-backed leaves. Its leaves stay very small and it has strong climbing tendencies. It will very soon start climbing up this vertical terrarium. Like most terrariums, next I'm going to be adding Springtails. These will eat any mould or decaying matter inside. The moss and plants provide sufficient oxygen for them to survive, and in turn the Springtails keep the terrarium clean and help fertilise the substrate. Next I use a pipette to water the terrarium. This is a good way to control the amount of water that's going in to ensure the terrarium does not get overwatered. I then screw the lid back on and the terrarium is complete. This once piece of rubbish is now a miniature ecosystem, home to moss, plants and Springtails. If you've got an old spice jar lying around, why not try this yourself and let me know how it goes. If you want to make a terrarium that is a little more complex, watch this video.